You know why you clicked. The Mars 5 Ultra, is it any good? Well, I have kind of a unique perspective on that. I'm not a 3D printer expert. I don't review tons of them. I'm more of a generalist hobbyist maker. I use 3D printers as one of many tools to make whatever insane thing I feel like. So, is the Mars 5 Ultra a good tool for that job? Well, I'll get to that. But first, let's go over some of the features that make the thing unique. It's got 18 micron square pixels on the screen. That's the best resolution I think you can get these days. It has a tilting vat, which is very cool. A normal clear FEP sheet, the release film on the bottom of the vat. Auto leveling, Wi-Fi, a camera, a 7-inch screen, cool resin calibration features, and a whole lot more that you could see in any review or on Elegoo's own website by reading their marketing. But what does that actually mean to you? Well, first off, it's fast. It's very fast. My older printers spend, 5, 10, 15 seconds sometimes between layers. That's between curing a layer, lifting, lowering, curing the next layer. That's time not curing plastic. Not this one. I suspect they have that process down to about 2 seconds or so with this. I didn't time it. That means all else being equal, this one prints very quickly. Much more quickly than some of the older printers. Now, I'm going to say something perhaps controversial here. I don't care for the new model fancy fast printers. In my mind, improving one thing usually means you sacrifice another thing, and I generally hit the print button and I leave for like a day. And I come back and the print's done. So fast doesn't really do it for me. But the important part here is kind of how this achieves that speed. Now when the resin cures to the build plate, it also cures to the sheet underneath the resin. There's a clear sheet there. And the printer usually raises up the build plate and peels it off that sheet of plastic and then sets it back down and cures it. That's why you see it going up, down, up, down, up, down. This takes time, that sheet is delicate. The way other fast printers have been doing this is by using special resins designed for this. They tend to be runnier, and that sheet on the bottom, that sheet is designed to release more easily. Now if you've seen some of those sheets, I don't have any here, they tend to be a bit hazy looking. That's a problem because light's supposed to go through that. And if your nice high resolution light goes through frosted glass, your high resolution sharp image becomes hazy. We don't want hazy, we want clear. This one uses a clear sheet and it can still release easily because it's not pulling the prints off. It's tilting the front down. So it's peeling off kind of front to back. That means you don't need that frosted sheet. You don't need special resins. It's just a slightly more delicate way of peeling off so it can go faster. At least that's my understanding. I might be wrong. That normal clear film at the bottom of the vat to you means even though this doesn't have a higher resolution screen than the previous Mars Ultra, the Mars 4 Ultra, you can still, in theory, get higher resolution prints off of it. Now about that resolution, I'm going to say something perhaps a bit controversial again. You might think it's crazy for a new printer to come out a new generation and it doesn't have a better resolution than the old one. The numbers aren't any better. I don't care if the resolution gets any better because it's already so freaking good. But let's look at it anyway. They push these printers generally on people into gaming miniatures, but let's take a look at this gaming miniature. I say miniature because this thing is freaking big. Gaming miniatures are usually like this big. It's supposed to be like a Titan or something. For some reason, this walking fortress has relief carvings of nuns all over it. And a couple of them, one of them has a book that they're holding out and a right hand up with an index finger pointed, which is freaking insane because that carving is like a centimeter tall. I'll put a picture of some close-ups next to my finger for scale. It is absurd. And these tiny little details come through like super good. But is the crazy good resolution actually noticeably better than the old stuff? Or are we just doing like placebo effect here? Here are two prints side by side. Same resin, mono-cure burn away. It's an investment casting resin. Same STL file, same supports. One was printed with 18 micron pixels and a 20 micron layer height. The other one was printed on a printer with 30 micron pixels at a 30 micron layer height. Significantly worse. Yes, smaller layer height on the Mars 5 Ultra because I wanted the pixels to be roughly cubic. Yes, I'm that kind of nerd. Can you really tell which is which? I forgot to label them. I can't tell myself. I definitely can't tell with the naked eye. They look identical. They both look amazing, but identical. But there's one place I've seen where the resolution actually matters, and that is with voxel lines. Have you ever seen like someone tries to make a sphere in Minecraft and 6 sides of it have like circles all over it? Those are voxel lines because the thing's made out of pixels. These are essentially doing the same thing. You got pixels, set layer, pixels, set layer, and you end up with voxel lines. The standard way to get rid of that is anti-aliasing. What that does is it blurs the edges on your nice sharp pixels and to give you a smoother surface at the expense of a little bit of detail. I never use anti-aliasing. But the smaller pixels and smaller layer height mean that the voxel lines are actually really difficult to find, even with anti-aliasing turned right off. It's almost like you're increasing resolution, you're not really getting better detail, but you are getting smoother surfaces without anti-aliasing. It's like anti-aliasing, but without the sacrifice of detail. I've even tried printing in clear resin, which usually comes out very cloudy, and if you look very closely, it's because of the lines and the voxel lines and stuff. And you can get rid of that a number of ways, but when I print with clear resin on this thing, it actually comes out quite clear looking. And I think it's the surface being smoother. That's what's giving the effect. And the surface is smoother because the pixels are smaller. So I will continue never using anti-aliasing. Oh, and that smaller layer height I'm using, that generally means slower prints, right? Well, yes, but no. Those two rings I showed you printed at very different speeds, and the smaller layer height on the Mars 5 Max did not go slower. It actually printed in half the time. Yeah, not 10% quicker, not 10% slow, no, half. Like 3.5 hours versus like more than 7. Might have been quicker than half the time. So in this case, you're not getting a faster printer at the expense of a little bit of like clarity or resolution. No, you're getting better resolution and it's faster. It's actually an advancement. It's not like just fudging numbers to make something look better. Oh, and that vat that can move around, it self-levels. I did not have to level the bed out of the box. A lot of other printers that get out of the box and they're pretty level to begin with, but eventually you need to make changes and calibrate it. Not this. It does it itself. So that's 2 thumbs up for ease of use, especially for newbies getting this printer. Because, you know, you probably want to make stuff. You don't want to spend all your time screwing with the machine, right? Oh, and speaking of calibrating stuff, it has a cool resin exposure feature. You can put in a file that's got your choice calibration print in multiple different areas. Then you can program those different areas of the bed to have different exposure times. So you can print one and get multiple tests all at once. It really accelerates how quickly you can dial in a resin, especially because it prints so fast. All the other features it's got are cool, but honestly, I can live without them. Now the big question, what use case do I see for this in my own shop? Well, the marketing pushes these things on gamers who use these little gaming miniatures, and if you're doing that, it's freaking awesome. Like I see no reason to use any other printer for gaming miniatures. But I find myself of 2 minds here. Half the stuff I want to make is too big. It's huge. It wouldn't even fit on the larger, like the Saturn IV Ultra, which looks a lot like this printer, only bigger, because it is. It's this exact printer, but bigger and with a little less resolution. Well, that's a 10-inch printer, and half the junk I want to print is too big for that. I would really need like a 12 or even a 15-inch printer for like a lot of the stuff I want to do. The other stuff I make is small and will fit on this printer very easily, but there's another problem. I use a lot of burnout resins for investment casting. They are designed to burn away without leaving a trace. No ashes, nothing at all. They're used in investment casting like traditional lost wax jewelry making, but instead of lost wax, it's lost resin. And casting resins are finicky. Because of that, I prefer a printer with like a heated vat. That helps, especially in my cold, drafty Wisconsin garage. I get consistent results because I have a consistent temperature. That's one variable eliminated. This doesn't have one of those. Now I did get this printer ahead of time to make this review, but I did not get it over the winter, so I can't cold test it. I suspect the way the vat peels off instead of pulling off might be gentler on resins, on casting resins especially, and it might help prevent issues caused by brittle resins, or maybe even the wrong temperature. I don't know. I gotta say right now, in this temperature, this printer has worked amazingly well. This resin might help. It's called Monocure Burnaway, which is designed to print more like normal plastic, not so much like wax resins, and it's also designed to burn out much more quickly. This is not a review of this resin. Subscribe and watch out for that in the future. But in short, it's probably going to be my go-to investment casting resin from now on. And until the weather gets cold enough where I'm going to need a heater out here, this will be my go-to printer, especially on small things. So, is this a good printer for general shop use? Yes, if what you're printing fits on the build plate and it's not too cold in your garage. It's probably the best small printer you can get. If you're interested, there's a link down below to go check that out.